Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for coming this afternoon to a conversation with Henry Steiner, who is the subject of our exhibition, Henry Steiner, The Art of Graphic Communication. I think I don't really need to introduce Henry as the father of graphic design in Hong Kong. You're all here to hear from him. I'm thrilled to welcome Billy Potts, designer and writer, who will be leading the conversation with Henry today. Can I just make a housekeeping remark, please? Silence your devices. And if you require it, there is simultaneous translation in Cantonese. The conversation will be conducted in English. So if you do need a device, please feel free to step outside and get it from the counter right now. So thank you all again for coming this afternoon. And we have a very full house. We're going to be letting a few walk-ins come in during the duration of the talk. So thank you, and thank Henry and Billy for the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Henry, a few opening remarks?
From me?
Yeah.
Welcome to the show. I'm really touched by how many people are interested, and it's my profession that I'm grateful to, which has allowed me to be in such good company. Any questions?
Oh.
Okay.
Pardon me. Here we go. So bizarre.
Sweet. Okay. When do the pictures come on?
Yeah, bear with us just a moment.
Sure.
Obligatory technical difficulties.
Yeah.
Yes, please. Wonderful. Well, here we go.
Yeah.
Very good. Excellent. This seems like a good place to start. A banknote that, very, very, very few people have seen. Certainly not something that we tend to keep in our wallets, a $150 note. But of course, this is a great place to start because, so much of Henry's work is associated with, powerful institutions in Hong Kong itself. However, most of all, I would say that Henry's work and career and the arc of it very closely traces the history of modern Hong Kong. And so, Henry, this banknote is very relevant for this point, given that it is not just a banknote, but also a visual timeline of Hong Kong.
That's right.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I think it speaks for itself. The reverse, which you can see sort of in the middle, is a group of people from the beginning of Hong Kong to a little boy, showing the growth of Hong Kong, and it was delightful to have the opportunity of doing this. 150 years for the bank, that bank, yeah.
Yeah, and of course everybody knows that that's not the only banknote that Henry's ever done.
Yeah.
Practically everyone, whether or not they've heard of Henry, and who hasn't, to be honest, they've at least seen his work because it's in their wallet.
Yeah.
And so carrying on
a
with...
lot of people are sitting on it.
Yeah. So, the theme carries on. Henry's work is very nuanced, and there's, of course, a lot we can say about it, but, what people often say, it's a meeting of West and East, or East and West, however you want to put it. But here we're also talking about change and progress, and the comparison of past and present and the future. Why don't you tell us a bit about these notes, Henry? So on the left we have the comparison of the old technology and new.
Yeah.
And
See it on the screen, Henry. See it on the screen.
this is right here.
Yeah. I'd like to think that these images speak for themselves. This is about the growth of Hong Kong. The usual suspects, the animals from the bottom to the top with the dragon, and I'm really better at drawing than talking.
Well,
So
why don't I step in, and then you can
Please.
carry on whenever you like.
I'll interrupt when I think it's necessary.
Please do. And so, we have the classic note, and this theme has been going for some time. We have the mythical creatures, and Henry's, explanation and story behind this, because Henry always has a story,
Yeah.
is that the denominations correspond with the sort of rank or the status of the creature depicted. And so we have the fish or the carp on the 20, going up through the turtle, or the dragon turtle, the qilin, the phoenix, and the dragon. However, there is special meaning with the 20, isn't there, Henry, about the fish and transformation? In that a fish can always transform into a dragon.
Yeah, you see the animal going through the denominations, from fish through land, through air, and finally the dragon. It's nice to have these pieces of what do we call it? Mythical animals that all I have to do is do pictures of them. I don't invent them, and it's so much of my work is fun, and I really shouldn't be charging for it. But go ahead.
And so on the reverse side there,
Yeah.
I think it leads on nicely from the mythical creatures, in that we're a city which is rooted in a very rich heritage, but we're always changing, always progressing.
Yeah.
And so, we have here, you've juxtaposed modern technology with old. So you've, for instance, put circuitry next to an old seal, and you've put facial recognition next to an old diagram for Chinese medicine, I believe it is, and an old lock and a new lock.
Yeah.
So you're always talking about change, always talking about transformation.
Yeah.
And I think this is a good way to get into the how the city has changed and how you've actually helped navigate that. So just to lead you in, this is obviously the identity for the Hong Kong Jockey Club, which you worked on in 1996 on the way to the handover. And so, this was a very important job for a very important institution.
Yeah.
And here we always talk about how we don't like to say rebranding, but we like to refine and dust things off. So if everybody can look at the top right, we have the original identity for the Royal Hong Kong Jockey Club, as it was at the time.
Yeah.
And it's not terribly different from what Henry's done. However, there are very nuanced differences, Henry.
It's basically a horse. What do you call a bridle or something? Yeah. But the interesting part is the whip, which you can see in the middle, coming to a point. And I was told by somebody in the jockey club that that was kind of tricky, because if you really did that with a horse, it would cut it in half virtually. You can see on the right side the change that I made, and I flattened the whip, and did some other little things, and basically added color and the shape, which reminds one of a racetrack. So
the oval shape, just to be clear.
That's correct. Yeah.
And would you tell us about the order of the language and your thinking behind that?
I'm sorry.
Well, as we can see from the original, Chinese is on the bottom and English on the top.
Yeah.
However, in your version, we have English on the bottom and Chinese on the top.
Well, that's only factual. I mean,
and of course, you've also removed royal from it. I mean, this.
Yeah, well, that was the first to go, basically. It sounds nice, but not after the handover.
Yeah,
the Royal Hong Kong Jockey Club. It's a bit pompous. Yeah.
So you're softening up the image, going from a whip to a modern riding crop.
That's right.
A bit more gentle, a bit more.
And adding the racetrack, and
so always going.
And giving it color, yeah.
And giving it color.
Yeah.
And but sometimes, of course, there are things that fall by the wayside. This is well, I personally love this identity. It's one of my favorites, Hong Kong Telephone Company.
Yeah.
However, there is this idea that graphics somehow need to mirror the changes in technology. But do you think that's necessarily the case? Do they have to? Do they have to change things?
It depends. In this case, sadly, telephone books bit the dust, and it's something from the past. It was nice, the tea, but one moves on.
Well, you once told me a little story to answer this same question.
Right.
Your old friend and mentor, Paul Rand, he, of course, designed the logo for IBM.
Mm-hmm.
And that's roughly contemporaneous with this identity. But IBM's identity, of course, is practically the same as the one that Rand did.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at that, I think we can agree that design can be timeless. It doesn't have to. It doesn't.
Oh yeah.
Doesn't have to change for the sake of it.
Yeah, there are a few of those in my memory or whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
Would you tell everybody here what your idea behind this orange circle and the T and the negative space is?
Telephone. Yeah.
And you're holding out.
What? Sorry?
Come on, Henry.
What? What does he know?
Your little story about the temple bell and sound and transmission of sound and information.
Yes, that's true. A bell which is the most. It's Chinese tradition in the present, if you like. I do a lot of that.
Yeah, and a really nice, very subtle expression of your something which you often bring into your work, East meets West, but of course this does without any sort of chinoiserie, no nostalgia. It's a very clean, modernist identity.
Yeah, although, you know, it's modern on the right side, and on the left you have the Chinese writing instruments and clock and a chop.
I mean, you always try to tell a little story through these images, and take a minute to talk about these phone books, since we've been talking about phone books. These photographs were taken by John and I under your direction. And here you're telling, with John, you're telling a bit of a story about business in Hong Kong, and your
and collecting the objects, you know, putting them together so that they tell the story instead of trying to draw things, right? And the next.
Yeah, more of this. I mean, but you know, we look at it now, and it seems like, oh, how nostalgic, a phone book, a rotary dial phone. But at the time, I mean, I don't think that you were dealing with nostalgia. You were dealing with cutting-edge technology. And, I mean, and we don't have an image of this, but on the reverse sides of all of these phone books, there are always advertisements for IDD calls, and in the later years, they were beginning to advertise connecting to the internet. So we were actually transitioning, and you were often designing these advertisements as well.
Sure.
So it strikes me that your work, though people always speak about it, people often speak about it in nostalgic terms, that's not how you were operating at the time. You were on, you know, the cutting edge.
Oh yeah. It was the present then.
It was the present then.
Yeah. And here we go.
Here we go. This is the project, perhaps, that you know, everybody will bring up first when your name comes up.
Yeah.
This is.
Well, it just fell in my lap, really. It was how do you come up with a symbol for the bank, and their flag. Hong Kong depended a lot on flags, you know, which is to do with the ships, and the bank's flag was a rectangle with a cross, a red cross in the middle. I changed it to a square, and then added the ears on the side to just give it something specifically for the bank.
And for the benefit of anybody who doesn't know, what did that cross in the original flag represent? Or more specifically,
remind me.
The St. Andrew's cross. Whose flag is that?
Whose what?
Whose flag is the St. Andrew's cross, the saltire?
What?
Scotland.
Scotland. Oh yes, of course. The saint, the patron saint of Scotland, and the people who had all the money at the time, the Scots.
Well, because at its heart, it was a Scottish bank, and it still is a British bank.
Yeah.
You know, of course, under significant Chinese influence, but a British bank nonetheless.
Yeah, you're better informed than I am.
Well, I make it my business.
Yeah.
But here we go. We've got some of the themes which you like to deal with, quite often, and you didn't just do the bank's visual identity. You also did its annual reports,
That's
brochures, piggy banks, leaflets, what have you, for decades.
Yeah. We did quite a few annual reports for them, and then things like that ETC, Itung Choi, and that it was fun, and then the lady, what would you call her?
The robot, the android.
Yeah, but an attractive one. Yeah.
But once again, you're dealing with the introduction of modern technology, and also signaling change or an advancement, and you often do this through contrast and comparison.
Yeah.
So you worked through quite a few of these images with your old friend Ken Haas.
That's right. He was a photographer for a lot of my work. Yeah.
And so here we see the Statue of Liberty contrasted against a Cantonese opera singer, and this was to mark HSBC's new controlling interest in Marine Midland Bank, a New York bank. Same again with when you're contrasting these two lions. One of these bronze lions from outside the bank, and this lion, I believe, which is in front of the New York Public Library.
Correct. Yeah.
So as always, you're talking about two different cultures, but you're comparing them, and by comparing them, you're bringing them together. That's a theme that we often see.
Yeah, compare and contrast. Yeah.
Yeah, and not just cultures, but also time. If we take a look at this image of an old lock, this is on the cover of an annual report. That's actually an old French design, and that S is the keyhole, but it also looks like a dollar sign. And
I didn't know that when I did that, but it's amazing how you do something, then people find symbols in it that and you go ahead and you say, yes, of course I
And that's something that you do quite often, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to finish with this lock, if you have the wrong key or if you try to pick it, that lion's jaw will come down on your hand. And you've compared that.
Yeah.
And you've compared this against a fingerprint recognition. So old technology and new technology.
It's a shame that I can't show more than just the covers, because the inside is interesting, and but you'd need to reprint the annual reports to appreciate it.
Well, why don't we talk about this?
Yeah.
I know that you have a lot of feelings about it, but of course in 2018, HSBC did what people like to call a little rebranding. As you like to say, I love you, you're perfect, now change.
Yeah.
So, on to our right and your left here, we have Henry's work, his original work in '83. And over here on your right, we have the HSBC identity as it is today.
Yeah, they didn't change the hexagon, but the typography is, the less said about it, the better. Sometimes you wonder why, as I say before, I love you, you're perfect, now change. you wonder what goes on in their minds, you know.
Can you recall, Henry, what the new typeface is, or the so-called new typeface?
I think it begins with an E.
It's Universe.
Universe, yeah.
Now, this is interesting, I find, because you know, a big deal is made about departing from Henry's design. However, I do wonder how much they did depart, and I wonder if this might be a reflection of the vision that Henry had going all the way back to the early 80s. Now, we have here an excerpt from the Hong Kong Bank, you know, corporate identity guidelines. It's the identity manual, and this is the one that Henry created back in '83. Isn't that right? And so this was provided to us by our good friend John Wu, you know, a prolific collector of Henry's work. So he presented this.
My biggest fan. Stand up, John. Stand up, John. There you go.
So when John presented me with this document, now this document is massive. It's about that thick. When John brought it out, it was like a holy text. You know, everybody treats it with reverence, except for the graphic designers who are supposed to use it, apparently.
Yeah.
But I found this very interesting. We came to the page which sets out acceptable type. And this is what Henry said. So, of course, the top is Times Roman, which is what used to appear on the Hong Kong Bank identity.
Right.
Interestingly, just under that, and the detail here, it's Universe. So I think that speaks for itself, Henry. I think you had the vision in 1983 for, you know, what somebody claimed they did in 2018.
Yeah.
And got paid for it.
They did.
Well, yeah, they did. Henry
Yeah,
didn't.
well, good luck to them.
So, you know, on this happy subject, I think it's only right that we should move on to how you have actually shaped the way that the city looks, physically, literally, through your graphic design.
Okay.
So, of course, this is the HSBC building as it is today. Interestingly, your version of the identity is still there on the front door.
Yeah.
And this is exactly the way that you dictated that it should be placed. You planned all of this, and it still stands.
Yeah, bits of it. I don't know what goes on in their little heads, but you know, the less said, the better. It's peculiar.
But the important thing to note here is the relationship between your work and architecture. And you've done a lot in terms of setting signage, both from the ground up for what we see, you know, on a very normal day. It's a part of very mundane existence, but then it can also be very lofty. Can you tell us a bit about how you decided to arrange the signage for HSBC? Because, of course, you arranged all of it. Here we see to your right another excerpt from the corporate, the identity manual, and it's how Henry told them that they should arrange the banks.
Yeah.
So tell us about this huge sign, Henry.
Well, you can see it at the top, and it works. But then they fixed it. You know, as you can see, they made the hexagon smaller, added that blank area, just to you know, get a little bit more money. I don't understand it. You know, you did it, it worked, and then they tinkered with it. I think the less said about it, the better. But it's obvious what's wrong.
Well, why don't we go back in time a little bit?
Yeah.
To when you first began working with architecture and architects, and here you are in some of these images, a very young man indeed, in front of the Hong Kong Hilton.
Yeah. There's also Palmer and Turner in the top right.
So, of course, Palmer and Turner is an architecture firm that you had a long relationship with, and the Hong Kong Hilton was a building of theirs. For anybody who doesn't know, the Hong Kong Hilton stood where Cheung Kong Center stands today, and Henry created the identity for it and also placed all the signage. Now, Henry, this was the first time that you'd ever worked with signage and buildings, isn't it?
Yeah.
And had you been trained to do that?
No. It's all typography. Whatever the medium is, it's legibility and I spent quite a bit of time at Yale, learning this stuff.
Did anybody tell you to go down there and sort out the signage? Or did you do it out of professionalism?
I do everything out of professionalism.
Very well said.
Yeah. That's what they pay me for. There's a reason behind everything I do, I can explain why, and I'm not going to take a lot of time for it here, but everything means something.
That's a good opportunity for you to tell us what the Palmer and Turner identity that you did over there means.
Yeah, I'm very pleased with that. It's, as you can see, it's outlines. It's kind of like an architect's drawing. And the name of the firm is Palmer and Turner. And you can see at the top there's a letter P, and also it turns into a T, hence the Palmer and Turner. And it just dropped in my lap, a lot of time it's just looking at it and understanding it and then turning it into an identity. But it's nice looking back at these things because what I feel very strongly about is that you're doing something that should stay. Of course, the Hong Kong Hilton is no longer with us, but Palmer and Turner are, and with good reason, that's the way it is.
Yes, indeed. Palmer and Turner is still with us, and that wasn't the only project that you worked on with them.
Correct, yeah.
And here we have Connaught Center, which is, of course, Jardine House today.
That's right.
And you created the identity for Connaught Center. Would you tell us a bit about that? That's the top left there.
Yeah, well, the building. The Cantonese had a lot of fun with it. 1,000 assholes is what they said. The Cantonese, I love it. And it's C, and it's also the character for
center.
Yeah.
If everybody can turn their attention to the negative space between the two letter C's, it is the Chinese character 中.
Yeah, and I find Chinese is more open to that than European typography is. You know, so that you can do a lot of this.
Now, I think this is a good opportunity to talk a bit about, how good you are with manipulating Chinese type and Chinese text. But do you speak Chinese and do you read Chinese?
No and no.
So how are you able to do this?
By asking questions and being a bit. How should I say? I'll say to somebody, "What would you call this?" And they give me a name in Cantonese, and I say, "Yeah, that's what I meant," and it's sneaky, but it helps.
And you also deal with the characters as symbols and shapes, don't you?
Oh yeah, they're beautiful, and they're so much better than the 26 or is it 27 letters of the alphabet. It's a godsend.
So,
yeah.
With this building, you didn't just do its identity; you also worked on some of its wayfinding.
That's right.
And I'd say that even today, that what you did back then, back in the 70s, back in '89, it has an influence on wayfinding all over Central, even today.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the only wayfinding project that you ever did. Here's your work for Ocean Terminal.
That's right. There was a 1-year announcement, and it. Let me see. Yeah, over here, you can see that it started for the following year this way. With all of the characters on top of each other and ending up by, showing the number 12. I hope you remember this stuff better than I do.
And, and of course...
Yeah, the Ocean Terminal, which is meant to look like ships' flags, sailors' emblems, and... I'm not sure what the photograph is about.
The photograph is Ocean Terminal, just for reference.
Oh yeah. Good.
Yeah.
But the hint of the flags is kind of nice, and it's an OT at the same time.
So the nice thing about your work with property is it's sort of reflective of either the nature of the city, the nature of the architecture, or the way in which the architecture interacts with the landscape. But of course, this isn't limited to urban landscapes. It also extends to sort of suburban and rural. Like this one, Honglokyun. Like a lot of people, not a lot of people know that you worked on this, but you tell a little story about the place where this development was built through your identity for it.
Remind me.
Well, Honglokyun was built where an orchard used to be.
Oh yeah.
And so I think this one is, a pretty straightforward one. Well done.
Yeah, a tree in a building. It's not genius, but it works. Yeah.
Well, the other thing that I wanted to make a comment on about your work is it's often connected with powerful institutions or influential people. so often connected with power, and yet it has there's a subset of your work which is very connected to ordinary life. You know, it's not just for these lofty institutions; it's for everyone. Graphic design should be for everyone. And,
Correct. Yeah.
And you've done this lovely work for these shops and companies that practically everyone in Hong Kong knows of and has interacted with.
And I think they're still in use.
In some form, yes.
Yeah, is that right? Or
Well, I believe your packaging for Taiku Sugar is still in use in Indonesia, though sadly not in Hong Kong. And your welcome identity has been altered somewhat, but keeps some of the basic elements, the colors.
yeah, yeah. It's as I say, it's very strange when you come up with something that works fine, the client's happy, and then whoever was the client at that time retires, and somebody else comes in and he wants to, leave his mark on it. So they change things that shouldn't be changed. Not because I get offended, but because why bother? Why spend extra money?
And yet here is one example of where this worked out in your favor.
Yeah.
You redid this packaging for Taiku Sugar.
Yeah.
The old one to the audience's left, and your work to the audience's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, on the face of it, it doesn't look like you did too much to that type. But can you tell us about what you actually did do?
This is only part of it, and I used the cube coming in from the bottom right corner. This is just a fraction of the packaging.
Yes, Henry did the entire series of products.
And you can see another version of the Taiku Sugar. And and of course this is before, and the less said about that, the better. But it's done by people who haven't gone to classes in design or anything, and it was okay at the time. But we've moved on, so that's a good one. I don't know if it's still in use. Does anybody?
In some places. In some places.
Good. Okay.
So extending this Taiku Sugar, of course, the refinery is no more. It was once the largest sugar refinery in the world over in Quarry Bay, Swire's outfit. And as if to demonstrate the interconnectedness of business in Hong Kong, we have here the cover of Hong Kong and Shanghai Bank annual report from 1975. But can you tell us where this brick wall is from, Henry?
It was, who was it who deserted the building?
Swire redeveloped that building.
That's right. So during the period when they hadn't torn down everything, I had an artist working on this annual report, and he painted the mural there on the side of a wall.
So this is the last remaining wall, or the last remnant of the Taiku
right.
Sugar Refinery.
Yeah, and what can I say? It worked. Yeah.
Good job.
Thank you.
And the artist, of course, who you got to do this for you was Norman MacDonald. I think his name was.
Yes. Thank you for remembering his name. Yeah. He's a Canadian, and he did a wonderful job.
Yeah, and still sends you Christmas cards each year.
Correct. Yeah.
Now, another way in which you connect with people, and this is not something that we often see in your visual identities and logos, because those tend to be fairly serious.
Yeah.
But a big part of your work is actually humor. You know, you connect with people, particularly through your Newsweekly work, through humor. Would you tell us a little bit about why this is important to you?
Why humor is important?
Why is humor important? See,
If you have to ask, no, it's what's so lovely about this is the original print. And I collected Japanese prints of the young lady looking at herself in the mirror, and then I changed it. I used that.
it's right there.
Yeah, there we are, and that's. That's a Chinese print, but I turned it into somebody looking in the mirror, and then what were those things called? Mohicans.
A mohawk.
Yeah,
a mohawk.
That's right, or mohawk. At that time, and to make something very contemporary at that time, and modern, and I love to do these things, that are fun.
I mean, you're a huge collector of Japanese woodblock prints.
Yes.
And
yes.
this also has some connection with humor for you. You enjoy the humor in the prints, something which we don't find so much in Western art of the same period. Isn't that right?
Yes. Yes.
I mean, and you're a collector of many things, many things.
Some people say it's an accumulator.
Well, over here we have several examples of your blue and white ceramic selection.
Yeah, it's so beautiful to take a poem and make it a pattern on objects. It just works brilliantly, and there's no way you can do this with the Western alphabet. It's just charming.
Now, this is something which was actually introduced to you by your mentor, Paul Rand, isn't it?
Yeah.
And can you tell us a bit about what he taught you about this, and what we can learn from things like these ceramics, the interaction between the graphic and the physical object?
Well, Rand was a brilliant designer, and he was my mentor, and showed things that you can see him up there.
And this was when he came to visit you, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. I adored him. He opened up so much in making design, and I don't want to use the word serious, but to make it sensible.
Well, I think the word that he used specifically in relation to these, because he has in his book, A Designer's Art,
Yeah.
a photograph of a jardiniere
Yeah.
in this exact style.
You're absolutely right.
And
yeah.
he talks about giving an object dignity.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, you don't just collect, fancy, expensive things. You collect all sorts, like these objects here.
Yeah. Well, Jimmy's kitchen was sentimental. The little car that's from Africa, and it was Raid insect.
An insect repellent can, a spray can.
Yeah, and the wheels are bottle caps, front to front, and it's a French car, isn't it?
It's a Citroën.
Citroën, yeah, and it's wonderful, and somebody really put their heart into it. You just have to worship it in a way. That's the wrong word, I suppose, but it really is lovely. The other one, the
little pot.
The pot is, the American flag, sort of bits of it.
American iconography.
Yeah.
All of it interacting with the shape.
Yeah, with people's interest in design. In a way that we don't do it. We're used to having things, and there, it's making, a toy out of an the
bug spray.
Yeah, a bug spray. Yeah. There's a kind of desire for these things.
Well, they create desire for an undesirable thing. They elevate it. They change the virtue.
Yeah.
And it's always struck me that you appreciate that kind of thing where you elevate the virtue, where you elevate even a very regular grocery store or no frills, no brand product, and you give it the same kind of care and respect that you would for anything else.
Yeah, well, I couldn't have put it better.
And I think it's striking in your collections that you're fond of objects not necessarily because of their, prescribed price, but also because of the delight which they, create, but also the way in which the creator has used wit and humor and of course creativity to make these things.
Yeah, it's very touching to see the need for fun, for creativity where you don't expect it.
And here's something that you do for fun. You used to do this every year.
I used to, yeah, that's right.
These are your own business cards and greeting cards for the Chinese New Year. Each of them represents an animal of the zodiac.
Correct.
And here, this is just for you. This is for no other client. This is just a bit of fun, isn't it?
It's every year for those 12 years, I had a different image, and this is only part. It was on the letter paper on business cards, on stickers. That's a lady who's.
This is Melanie Hollinshead, who was Henry's business manager for many years.
Who survived working for me, and it's it's a way of wanting to play with things. The Year of the Horse. I mean, I think before I did this, there wasn't this playfulness with the 12 animals. It was just, you did it for one 12-year period, then another one, and they were all the same and dull. And I wanted to play with them, and playing is the important word there. But the dog biscuit, the egg that looks like a rooster. There's fun in all of it, and it started, by the way, with that blue one, and it was going to be just that year, and then I thought, well, let's keep it going. So it was for 12 years. And this one, what was it?
The pig.
Yeah. And it's, a terrible pun. It's the ear of the pig. Okay.
So,
Sorry.
You do a lot of things for fun, and one of the things that you like to do for fun is posters.
Oh yeah.
Because you don't actually get many opportunities to do posters these days.
Yeah.
And boy, do you have fun with
sadly,
posters.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about this one for Design 98, where you've referenced a Goya painting?
That's it all there. It's the macha. I forget what that means. It's a countess or something, and it has her Goya painted her lying down, fully dressed, and another one lying down, undressed, and it's the macha desnuda. I think is the nude one. The one on the far left is for the 10.
The Chinese 10.
Yeah, 10 at the top, but it also can be read as a T, and then Y, and then P, and then the character for 3, but it can read as type, bilingually. You get a chance to play around with these things that way. And this one was a very nice reproduction of a photograph of a Chinese who worked with chinnery. And he was the first Chinese to work with oil paint and so on. And I played around with the paintings that were shown, like this one at the bottom. It's actually the back of a painting in the original photograph. And then the one on the far right, which is a lady who is made up, and that's the Chinese one, and another one that's actually an Austrian artist, and just putting it all together and making it fun. So you have Austrian and Chinese, and so much of what I do is like that.
So speaking of Austria and China and Hong Kong, here we go. For anybody who doesn't know, Henry was born in Austria. And here we have work which he has done for Heurigen, which is an annual celebration that the Austrian community has, isn't it? And it's here compared with an annual report which Henry did for Hong Kong Bank in 1980. Again, the photograph, done in collaboration with Ken Haas. So here, the idea is that you were comparing the round shape in describing the two cities, the Big Apple and the Pearl of the Orient.
That's right. Yeah.
And then it's the same idea again, but expressed in a very different way, to talk about the relationship between Austria and Hong Kong. A pearl is represented by a Mozart chocolate, which is very famous in Vienna, and presented within a Chinese box, or with Mozart's face replaced by that of Bruce Lee.
Over there.
And again, you do this just for fun, don't you? They ask you to do it, and you.
I thought Bruce Lee like a chocolate candy. Usually, you would see the head of Mozart in that chocolate ball, yeah. But here it's Bruce Lee. And it's kind of nice, for Hong Kong and Austria. A lot of this, I think, people don't spend too much time on, but I get a lot of fun out of it.
Mm-hmm. Clearly, you do it every year. And this is a nice way to come back to your origins, in Austria, and a nice way to.
Heurigen is a celebration of the collecting the grapes at the end of the summer, and in Hong Kong they have a ceremony, actually a dinner and so on, outdoors, and of course that's Freud. This is a
little coaster.
A coaster, and you can see the
ring of
wine from the glass there. That's printed. It's not an accident. It's made to look like an accident, and. The eye chart, impossible to read, really.
Why don't you tell us why it gets blurrier and blurrier towards the bottom?
Because you get drunk. Yeah. And it's, and I forget what it's written for, but...
Well, it looks to me, and I don't speak German, but it looks like it says Heurigen. Austrocham.
Yeah, and I purposely made it, an eye chart that's hard to see. So
a nice return to your origin, and a nice way for us to wrap up this talk by coming back to the beginning.
Right.
A personal history, but a personal history which very closely traces, the modern history of Hong Kong. And so,
I'd like to think that it does. Yeah, I owe a lot to Hong Kong, and I'm glad I can share the expression of that with you and some other people too. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Henry.
Thank you. Good.
Thank you, Billy, and thank you, Henry, especially for your reflections. I'm really thrilled that M+ is the repository of a really significant collection of Henry's work. We have 39 project archives representing thousands of objects that sit within our fifth floor research center, and we encourage researchers and scholars to access our archives by appointment. We have a small selection of these archives on view in the exhibition upstairs. But I'd now like to spend a few minutes maybe to take some questions from the audience. Feel free to ask any question in English. 你可以用廣東話問問題嘅，咁我哋都可以幫你翻譯。
Yeah.
Hello, Henry. I want to ask who translate or give the Chinese name Sek Hon Soi.
I wish I could remember it. It was, it was a man in the American Chamber, Hong Kong Chinese, and just out of nowhere he said, I've given you a Chinese name. And he really understood it. Steiner includes the word Stein, which means stone, and of course Sek. And then Han Soi is I'm suffering from
Was he making the transliteration, Henry?
No. What you have something on that?
Yes. Oh, you have the answer, John. Can you tell us?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, once you told me Hon Soi, it's about how to put that. The Hon is Chinese.
Yeah.
Yes, right. And so it means longevity and.
Oh yeah. Because my name in German is Hans,
Yeah.
and from that we get Han Soi. So it's Shi Han Rei and.
Oh, now you correct me.
Yeah. I get there eventually. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't be shy.
Yeah, don't be shy. It's an amazing opportunity.
I don't need the microphone. Mr. Steiner, thank you for your presentation.
Thank
You for your presentation.
You can call me Henry.
Henry,
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask if you are still working, and if so, what kind of projects are you working on?
Yes, I'm working. And, it's corny, but I love my work. I really do. And I'd like my better half to stand up and take a bow. Hello. Hello.
Margaret.
That's it.
Margaret.
That's my better half, as I say. And what was the question again?
Are you working on? Are you still working? And
Yeah.
On what kinds of projects?
Whatever the clients want. Corporate identity. What else? Book covers. Oh yeah, my son is pulling this one on me. I work because I like the work. I don't need to. It's not that I've made so much money, but I love the work. It keeps me busy, keeps me out of the house for the office, and
I think I can supplement the answer a little bit as well. Quite recently, as Henry mentioned, he's still works on visual identities, and fairly recently, Steiner and Co. has come up with a logo for a streaming company, a video streaming company in India, and I think it's as good as anything that you've ever done, and it's a reflection of how Henry's work really does track whatever the current situation or the current technology might be. This is not a work of nostalgia. This is contemporary.
I couldn't. But it's it's fun for me, really. It's not a chore. Don't tell this to my clients, but I really love my work. I'm so glad that I discovered it. Otherwise, I might have been doing corny comic books or God knows what. But it's the combination of the work and of Hong Kong that has made me, and I'm grateful to both. Is that okay? Yes.
I would like to know.
Can you wait for the mic? Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, Henry.
Yeah.
Billy. I would like to know, maybe you've told me, but I don't remember. What made you leave Yale and your mentor and move to Hong Kong? Because it was a big, big adventure in early 60s.
Oh, gosh.
I think you graduated.
I guess so. Do you know, darling, what brought me to Hong Kong? In other words,
Asia magazine.
yes,
Asia
that's right.
magazine.
The Asia magazine. That was a big deal. It was a Sunday supplement for English language newspapers around Asia, one for each country. And they were unusual. First of all, they were in English, and then they had color for all of Asia on a weekly basis on the weekend. And it was it brought me here. I worked on the advertising for them, and my motto is so far so good. I was lucky. I have no regrets about my life in Hong Kong.
That was in 1961.
Yeah, 61, and met my wife, my earlier sons here, and yeah, and some nice, a lot of nice people. Yeah. What's that?
Earlier sons.
Yeah. Sorry about the tittering. And by the way, if you're not satisfied with what I say, just ask me again. Yeah.
Oh.
Ah, good.
We have two questions, maybe one here.
So Henry, thanks for your great presentation to us. Really inspire our designer and does help for our design society build up our name in Hong Kong. That's great. Now get a big applause for Henry. Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. And I would like to ask one question. Yeah. Since you came up to Hong Kong in 1961, what is your first impression when coming up to Hong Kong, and right now is 20 and 24, using your concept for contrast and comparison. So what's the difference then and now in Hong Kong, and how we are going well to the future? Yeah, thank you, Henry.
Well, for one thing, the only way you could get from Kowloon to Hong Kong Island was by the Star Ferry, and that was fun. Of course, there was a car ferry, and that was a few years until they opened up the tunnel and so on. One of the nice things about Hong Kong is it's always changing, always. You can't go away for a few years and come back and see everything that you liked before, because it maybe has changed for something else, and that's wonderful. It's the vitality of Hong Kong, and I'm not saying this for applause or anything, but I really Hong Kong made me. And I'm very grateful.
I think Hong Kong's been fortunate to have you.
Yeah, somebody else. Good.
Thank you, Henry and Billy, for this presentation. Like, I didn't realize growing up that I was actually surrounded by work in my everyday life. So it's very nice to hear from you today to speak.
Yeah, I should have had my signature bigger.
So for Hong Kong emerging out of COVID and trying to rebrand itself as an international city, what advice do you have for young graphic designers working for Hong Kong corporations today?
I don't think there's any difference from half a century ago. It's learn your client and do the best you can. Really. In terms of design, I'd say very little has changed. Good design is good design. The media might change a bit, but the idea behind the communication is still the most important thing. I hope that answers you. More.
Are there any other burning questions?
Oh, come on.
One at the back.
Good.
Hello, Henry. I wanted to ask, how do you feel about AI in graphic design at the moment?
It's a medium, no better than the printing press or anything else. It's design is design. I don't think there's. It doesn't. It's not a threat, and it's not. Media are there to be learned, and but design remains design. Whatever the medium is. I hope that's not stupid, but I'll be happy if you ask more specific questions. Next, if anyone.
Another one at the back here.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks for your inspiring presentation. I'm a banker in Korea, but I'm still studying design for my future job. So if you could go back to when you're junior or freshman in a society, what would you say to?
I didn't quite get that.
What did you say to yourself as a student of design?
Yes.
What would you say to yourself?
What would you say to yourself as a student of design? Any advice?
Over again.
And any advice?
In those days or now?
Or if you could speak to your younger self.
Yes.
If I could speak to my younger self, charge more.
Thank you. Charge more.
Well, that seems an appropriate point on which to wrap up. I'd like to draw your attention to a screening program we're having alongside the exhibition with Henry's #1 fan. I'll be in discussion with in a post-screening talk.
Please, my older son,
Carl.
over there, yeah, Carl.
And Kurt.
Kurt, yeah. K and K, and my wife,
Margaret.
Margaret. Oh yeah, Nadia and Vinci.
And Nadia and Vinci from Steiner and Co.
Yeah. Yeah, aren't they beautiful? All the ladies, not the boys. Yeah. Anybody else? With a question?
I think we've wrapped up the questions. And yes, please do feel free. There are still tickets available for the screening program. We're showing 2 short documentaries, one on one of Henry's teachers, Don Kingman at Hunter College, directed by James Wong Howe, the Chinese and American director, and then another short documentary on Andy Warhol in China, who came to Hong Kong, and the documentary features his visit to Hong Kong for the iClub, which Henry designed the opening campaign for. So John and I will be in discussion. I think mostly John will be talking about his love for Henry's work. So I invite you to get tickets for that. So finally, we have a questionnaire that we'd like to fill in for this talk, and everyone is invited to visit the galleries. So once you've filled in the questionnaire, please pick up a sticker as you leave. We're also very thankful to Henry and his office, who have offered you all a complimentary copy of his essays, which are at the back, which you can take on the way out. I'd also like to draw your attention to, so Billy is the co-author of the Zolima City Guide to Hong Kong, the first issue of which features Henry's work. So it's a way in which to encounter Hong Kong through Henry's design. So very much complementary to the exhibition. Thank you all for coming this afternoon. Yeah. Thank you, Henry, and thank you, Billy.
Wow.
So I'll be in the galleries for a short while. So if you'd like to come and speak to me or to Henry, feel free. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.